We told my parents a month ago in private because they've been incredibly supportive throughout this whole roller coaster. There was no big reveal, no social media post, just quiet joy between us. After 3 agonizing years, I finally got pregnant, but my sister locked me in at her party. She didn't expect our parents to ruin her dreams that night. I'm 33 years old, about 3 months pregnant after 3 years of trying multiple rounds of IVF, and what felt like an eternity of heartage. I wanted to be more pregnant before making a big announcement, so I didn't want to tell too many people outside of my parents and my husband's parents. Fast forward to last weekend, when my sister, Emily, 29, had her engagement party. Emily has always been a lot of fun and loves being the center of attention. As a child, she pulled stunts left and right to stay in the spotlight during family holidays, friend birthdays, and other occasions. I've spent my entire life letting her have her way because, to be honest, I simply don't have the energy to argue with her. I expected some minor drama at the party, but I didn't intend to make it about me. Instead, I planned to stay in the background and support Emily, leaving early because I've been feeling very exhausted lately. I even wore something loose to avoid questions, and everything was going well until the pregnancy had been difficult thus far, and I had experienced the worst of all the early symptoms. I was relieved that I could discuss it with my mother, who would have understood my suffering better than anyone else. We moved away from the guests to talk in a quiet corner, but Emily overheard us, and that's when everything went completely wrong. Emily went from 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye. I tried to explain that I wasn't announcing anything, that I had told her that I had told my parents weeks ago, and that we were just having a private conversation. But Emily wasn't having any of it. She accused me of being selfish and said I couldn't stand to let her have one day to herself. She made a big scene right there, and people noticed. I was mortified, so I kept telling her that I didn't mean any of that to happen. But it seemed like she wasn't even paying attention because she was certain that I had come to her party only to take away her moment. Emily, who struggles to let things go, insisted that I always had to create stories about myself, saying that I was jealous of her and that this was my usual behavior. At that point, I was so overwhelmed that I wanted to leave, but Emily stormed off, so I only stayed because my mom persuaded me to be there to support my sister. I also reasoned that if Emily abruptly came up to me with a strange smile on her face and said she wanted to show me something in the basement, it was something about a memento from our childhood that she thought I'd like. At the time, I didn't give it much thought, figuring that this might be her way of making things right. I followed her downstairs, but as Emily calmed down, I realized that I could go up to her again and properly explain what had happened. She slammed the door and locked it as soon as I entered the basement, and I froze. I heard her laughing through the door, and she claimed it was retaliation for me attempting to make her engagement party about myself. At first, I thought she was kidding, so I knocked and told her to open the door, but she simply kept laughing and left me trapped there. Panic struck me hard at that point. It was cold and dark, and I wasn't feeling well to begin with, and the stress and nausea kicked in full force. I began to pace back and forth because my mind was racing with potential ways to leave the basement. I saw that there was a window that I might be able to exit, and I needed a little push to get my whole body out. I put a box I found in the basement under the window so I could climb onto it, but in my panic, I was too shaken and lightheaded to notice how much my foot slipped halfway up on the box, and I fell hard. I lay there for a moment gasping, trying to determine whether the baby was okay, but my heart was pounding so hard that I started crying because I was so scared and frustrated with my predicament that my mind kept racing with the worst-case scenarios, such as what if this fall caused a miscarriage? What if something happened to my baby because of Emily's unkind prank? I tried to gather myself. Finally, I heard footsteps and my husband's frantic voice calling my name from the other side of the door. I'm not sure how long I was down there, but it felt like forever. No one came looking for me for what must have been at least an hour. I sat on the cold floor, hugged my knees, and did my best not to have a full-blown panic attack. When I knocked weakly on the door, he unlocked it, and I was in so much pain and so scared that I didn't argue. He practically yanked me out of there after taking one look at me. We hurried to the emergency room, and I tried not to cry or panic the entire way. All I could think was, what if I lost the baby because my sister couldn't handle someone else getting attention? For 5 minutes at the hospital, they performed an ultrasound, and I was holding my breath the entire time. I barely kept everything together then too. Fortunately, the baby was unharmed, but the doctor said it was a close call, and that things could have turned out much worse if I had fallen harder. I felt both relieved and emotionally spent, but my husband was upset and told me he wasn't going to let this go. He called my parents right away and told them what had happened, and we left the party so quickly that nobody got an explanation. He wanted my parents to at least have a firm conversation with Emily and to tell her the truth. The party was long over, and my phone was flooded with messages from my parents. At first, I didn't respond to any of them because I just wanted to go to sleep and forget that the entire day had even happened. But my husband reassured them via text that I was fine. I am so thankful that I have a husband who fiercely supports me. We ended up staying at the emergency room for a few hours until I was stable and ready to go home. After we hurried off to the emergency room, my parents were very confused about what had happened. They tried to get Emily to tell them because it seemed that my husband had caused a small scene when he started asking Emily where I was. When my husband called my parents while I was at the hospital and told them what had happened, they were furious and shut off his phone as well. The following morning, my parents called again, and that's when I found out what had happened. I confronted Emily about locking me in the basement in front of everyone at the party. My mom attempted to minimize it by saying it was a harmless joke that went too far, but my dad couldn't stand it. He was upset that Emily would act so recklessly, especially after learning about the hardships I had endured to become pregnant. He told Emily that enough was enough, and he made the big announcement that my parents would no longer be covering any of Emily's wedding expenses. On our honeymoon, my parents had always told my sister and me that they would love to be a part of all of our significant life events, and that one way they could do so was by financially supporting us. They had helped me pay for my wedding and planned to do the same for Emily, but Emily never imagined that my parents would ever break their word. Emily broke down in tears in front of everyone and repeatedly said that I had ruined her life. She called me names. Emily always reacted poorly when things didn't go her way, and she begged my parents to change their minds. Since then, I've been inundated with texts and calls from Emily and my mom, who keep asking me to talk to my dad and persuade him to change his mind. I told her that I'm done because Emily crossed the line, and I'm not going to brush it under the rug just because she behaved poorly and accused me of doing all of this on purpose. To maintain harmony, Emily has been bombarding my phone with unkind messages. She blames me for everything, claiming that if I had just kept quiet, none of this would have happened. She also claims that I've ruined her life and that her fiancé is beginning to question whether he even wants to marry her. Although I know that I'm not at fault, I still feel horrible, and even though my husband and dad have both assured me that I'm not at fault, I can't help but think that I must be somehow responsible for ruining my sister's engagement, wedding, and honeymoon. To start, thank you so much for all of the support and comments on my initial post. I've been reading them, and it's been really helpful to know that I'm not alone in feeling this way. Many people asked if my parents ever gave me preferential treatment or if Emily and I had a history of animosity, so let me address that before I give you guys an update on what has happened since I last posted here. To be honest, I wouldn't say that my parents play favorites. They were fair to us as children and did their best to treat us equally. Emily only received a little more attention because she was the family's baby, but I suppose that little extra attention made her into the type of person who craves attention and makes everything about herself. She was the child who would throw fits if someone else received the spotlight, no matter what the occasion. Since I've spent the majority of my life trying to keep things amicable between us, I've learned to just let her have her way because it was easier than arguing. In addition, I'm the oldest sister, so I always felt like it was my job to be the mature one and not upset anyone. But no matter how hard I tried, Emily would always push me. And instead of setting boundaries with her, my parents mostly gave in just to keep the peace. She completely lost it after my parents canceled funding for Emily's wedding, and the following day, she sent me this lengthy text accusing me of ruining her life and stealing her moment. She didn't apologize for locking me in the basement, by the way, but instead doubled down on saying it was only a joke that I took too seriously, and when I didn't reply, Emily went into full attack mode. After my husband hurried me to the emergency room that day, word quickly spread among the rest of our family that I was pregnant, which is another outcome I didn't want. In addition to having to deal with my sister's troubling texts and calls, I'd also had to deal with the rest of my family contacting me. They first wanted to congratulate me and inquire about how I was doing, but things gradually became strange. Many of them asked me how I could pretend to be pregnant to undermine my sister, and I had no idea what was happening. It turned out that Emily started spreading a falsehood that I was planning to get her to ruin her engagement party. She went around telling everyone in our family that I was some kind of manipulative person who attempted to ruin her life. I've had several relatives get in touch with me because they were perplexed, and my mom is trying to remain neutral in all of this, which honestly feels like betrayal. She keeps saying that Emily is just stressed out about the wedding and that I need to be the bigger person. But how am I supposed to be the bigger person when my sister is spreading lies about me during one of the happiest times in my life? One cousin even asked if I was making it up to punish Emily. After Emily's engagement party, 2 weeks later, she showed up at my house, banging on my door and demanding that I fix everything because I ruined everything. My husband told me not to open the door, but I foolishly thought maybe she was coming to apologize. Spoiler alert, the moment I let her in, she began yelling at me about how I had ruined her life and how everything was falling apart. It's exhausting. I tried to argue with my mom, but I was getting nowhere, so I decided to cut off contact with her as well. When I tried to explain that none of this was my fault and that she was the one who locked me in a basement, she completely snapped. Emily stormed into my living room, saw the ultrasound photo I had framed on the coffee table, broke the frame, and then tore the ultrasounds to shreds. She even claimed that her fiance's parents were reconsidering the entire wedding because they believe she is immature, and she blames me for that as well. I was shocked that she would do something so cruel. I've never seen her so angry before, and it scared me. After she left, I just broke down and couldn't stop crying for hours. It felt like everything had hit me at once. Being locked in the basement, almost losing the baby, and then realizing my sister had no boundaries to her cruelty. My husband was furious and told her to leave, especially after everything that had happened. However, before she stormed out, she yelled that she hoped I lost the baby so she could have her life back. My mom keeps telling me that Emily is simply in a bad place and that I should try to forgive her. But how you forgive someone who wishes harm on your child to make things even more complicated? I have words in my head, and I couldn't understand how someone could wish that on their own family. My husband wants to stop talking to her right away, and to be honest, I'm not sure if I can argue with him. I know I should cut her off, but I still feel guilty, like I'm somehow to blame for all of this. It's heartbreaking because I never wanted to be involved in their relationship drama, but now that I'm stuck in the middle, I'm not sure what to say to Emily's fiancé. He apologized privately for Emily's behavior at the party and said he'd been struggling with her erratic behavior. He also mentioned that he's not sure if he can go through with the wedding anymore because he's starting to see a side of her that he didn't know existed. Part of me wants to forgive Emily for my mother's sake, but another part of me fears that she will only continue to cause more harm. I'm not sure if she can change, and I don't want to spend my pregnancy worrying about what she might do next. For now, I'm concentrating on my health and my unborn child, and my husband has been a huge support system. We're just trying to keep the stress level as low as possible, but I can't get rid of the feeling that things with Emily are far from over. It's been a month since I last posted on this site, but I've been really busy. A lot has happened, and I've finally gotten some free time to myself, so I thought I'd give you guys an update. Let me start where I left off after Emily tore my ultrasounds and stormed off. I was devastated for a whole week. I'll keep you all updated if anything else happens at this point. I'm just hoping for a little peace, but I'm not holding my breath. My sister refused to listen, insisting on ruining my life the way I had. But I suppose Emily told her fiancé about what she had done, which is why he contacted me about his doubts about marrying her. They had started to fight a lot, and her fiancé reached out to me to explain everything that had happened. He reportedly tried to reassure her that they didn't need my parents' money to go through with the wedding because they both had more than enough saved up. My sister was a complete mess. She kept phoning and texting me with threats because I was ruining her life again. I ignored it until I couldn't stand it any longer and blocked her number, but it didn't stop her. She would talk about how she could get back at me all day and all night, which scared her fiancé until he finally got it and told her that he was leaving her. He even told her that she was an unstable person and that she was the only reason he was leaving her. I had the urge to pick up the phone and yell at her, but I knew that would only make things worse for me and my unborn child. So I had my husband block her number as well. It was calm for a few days until I received a call from my mother, who told me that the day before she married me, she started bombarding my phone with texts intended for me. She even asked my husband how he could stand to be married to me when all I cared about was myself. Called me, my sister had come over, and she was sobbing uncontrollably and would not stop talking about how I had to keep quiet about my pregnancy during her pregnancy. This seems like a slip of the tongue, but it was probably meant to be an engagement. She could not stop talking about how I had ruined her entire life by just being there, and she had to settle for a lot of things because I always seemed to get the best of things, and I had no idea where she was. Got that idea, especially since I've had to give up a lot of my special occasions, so that she could have her moment in the spotlight. Nevertheless, after hearing my sister complain that I was to blame for everything that had ever gone wrong for her, my mother was struck with a sudden realization of how entitled and irrational Emily was acting. I suppose she gained a real understanding of my sister's mental processes, and none of it supported her belief that my sister was simply having a rough day. My mom finally had enough of my sister's tirade and called her out on her behavior. My sister did not take it well at all. In fact, it made her breakdown worse, and the only person she believed to be on her side turned against her, which only made her more irate. She apparently got up from the couch where they were talking and ran upstairs to my bedroom, where she started to destroy my room, throwing everything off the shelves, shattering every trophy I had ever won, tearing up all my mother is a very sentimental person, so when my sister and I moved out, she made sure to leave our bedrooms in their original state. The only thing she did to our rooms was to make sure they were clean. Our rooms served as a reminder to my mother that we would always be there for her, so for Emily to destroy them was like her ruining all of her happiest moments. At the same time, my mother was so devastated and angry that she yelled for my sister to leave and for my mother to stop. Sister gave her a sly smile before leaving. My mother isn't my sister's biggest admirer at the moment, so she called me to apologize for always defending my sister. She said that I had every right to feel the way I did because Emily did something terrible. I never imagined that my mother would come around to see how awful Emily was, so hearing her apologize was extremely shocking, but I was thankful because I realized how much guilt I had been relieved of. My mom was on my side and didn't insist that I keep the peace with Emily. My parents have since cut off contact with Emily and told her that too. My mom has been distraught, but I've tried my best to support her. My husband and I have spent a lot of time helping my mom put my room back together. My dad is officially upset with Emily. He stated on multiple occasions that he doesn't want to see her for a very long time. The last time I heard from Emily's fiancé, he had finally broken up with her. I don't know where Emily is, and to be honest, I couldn't care less about her whereabouts or activities. I just want her far away from me until I've given birth. That's all for now. I don't think anything more dramatic could happen now, but only time will tell if I do come back to make another update, and I hope it's only after I've given birth. He's happier now, though, because he had to break the lease on their apartment. My life has been chaotic, but I'm happy to report that I've officially given birth to a beautiful, healthy baby boy. He's the light of our lives, and having him here has put a lot of things into perspective. Of course, Emily couldn't let me enjoy this moment without causing a little chaos, but for the first few weeks after I gave birth, everything was surprisingly quiet. Hello everyone, I'm back with what I hope will be the last update. My husband and I were getting used to life with a newborn, and it felt like we could finally breathe for the first time in months when Emily stayed away. My parents have been amazing, making sure to check in on us frequently, and my mom even brought over meals to help out. It was calm, and I felt so relieved, especially because they made sure not to bring up Emily and the trouble she caused us. However, one day when my dad, on the other hand, was adamantly opposed to her coming near us, neither he nor I trusted her, but I also didn't want to cause any more drama, so I told my mom I'd think about it. When my parents were visiting, my mom mentioned in passing that Emily had been asking a lot about the baby. Emily wanted to know when she could come to see my son. My mom was cautious because she knew how unstable Emily had been, but she still felt bad about Emily being left out. I received an anonymous text message from an unknown number, but as soon as I read it, I knew it was from Emily. It was filled with insults, calling me selfish and accusing me of trying to remove her from the family by having a child. She went on and on about how my son didn't deserve the life I was giving him and how she should have had the first grandchild. I was shocked because, after all this time, she was still very resentful and angry. I had my mother-in-law send me a picture of the anonymous letter, and sure enough, it was written by Emily. My poor mother-in-law didn't believe a word in the letter, but she was horrified that someone had sent her a letter one morning, completely frantic, saying that I was an unfit mother, full of lies about how I was neglecting my baby, that I was emotionally unstable, and even vaguely implied that I was abusive. After talking with my husband about it, we decided to move back to his home state because she knew my husband and be well enough to be specific in her insults. She was also disgusted by those accusations and worried that someone was after us. That was it for me. I couldn't take it any longer. Emily had gone too far, and I couldn't let her continue to negatively impact my life and my family. We had discussed it previously, but this time it felt like the only real way to get away. To ensure that Emily would have no way of reaching us, We made sure not to tell many people where we were moving in his hometown. Throughout the following few weeks, we packed up our house and made the big move. My parents were supportive of our decision, even though it meant we would no longer be close to them. My mom was devastated that her daughter's relationship had devolved to this point, but they also understood that we needed to act in our own best interests. Our son, Emily, is finally dealing with the fallout from her ex-fiance's departure. She reportedly started stalking and harassing him both in person and over the phone, and he filed a restraining order against her, which she promptly broke. As a result, she is dealing with the consequences, and my parents have severed almost all contact with her. To be honest, I'm relieved, but I'm not sure where she is now, and I'm okay with the fact that she needs help, but it's not my responsibility. I can't say that I'll ever fully understand why Emily acted the way she did, but I've come to terms with the fact that she's no longer in my life, and that's okay. I need to protect my son. Since the move, life has been so much better. My husband and I are settling into our new home and are surrounded by his family, who have been nothing but supportive. I feel like we can finally focus on raising our son in a calm, loving environment without the constant drama that Emily brought into our lives. For the first time in what seems like an eternity, I've finally found peace with my marriage, my child, and myself. I'm grateful to everyone who has followed this difficult road with me. Your support means more than you realize.